French Super Grandmaster Alireza Firouzja has just won the prestigious Sinquefield Cup with an unbeaten score of 6 out of 9, scoring 3 wins against Caruana, Giri and Liren, and not losing any games at all, even though his opponents were all super strong Grandmasters. So if you want to see how he pulled that off, I dive deep into his games and I want to show them to you now to just see what he did. And I also watched the interviews which he gave. Just to get a deep understanding of what was his strategy coming to the games and how he pulled off this fantastic tournament victory. So let's jump right into his games. In the first game, Alireza Firouzja was paired against none other than Caruana, and he was under a lot of pressure for the whole game. Fabiano came up with a nice idea in the opening, and the pressure was culminating here in this moment, which we see here, when Fabiano made a mistake by taking on f7, which was a bit too slow. Instead, he should have captured on b4, and after a takes b4, just move the king to g2, stepping out of this pin. And if rook takes d5, then he has rook takes f6. Obviously, e takes d5 doesn't work because black can capture the rook, but rook f6 and then rook takes f7 is coming with a winning attack for white. So this would have been Fabiano's moment. Instead, he took on f7, and after king c7, Firouzja got a lot of counterplay with bishop takes f2, and queen a8 was then again another mistake when after queen takes f7, now rook takes b4, c takes b4, guards the square on a7, and Firouzja later on managed to win the game because the pawn on a4 was then also weak, and that was his first very crucial win in the tournament. After quite a solid draw in round 2 against Nordibreck up to Satorov, Firouzja went on to face Vachier-Lagrave in round 3 of the Sinquefield Cup, and there was a lot happening in this game. Firouzja played the London defense, but later on lost control, and this was the final position which was reached in the game. And here, shockingly, MVL went for the draw by repeating moves with queen b8 and queen a4, queen c7, and this is how they agreed on a draw. But it turns out that black is actually totally winning here. I watched the press conference where Maxime bashed out some fascinating lines. One of them was bishop takes d4 here, which would have been the best way to win the game. But what he didn't see, and what was also very complicated during the game, obviously, after c takes d4, black can just consolidate here with bishop e6, and then, for example, queen h2 could be coming, or simply f4, pushing the pawns down the board. This would be quite a comfortable win, but what he thought, MVL, was that knight takes d5 is not so clear. When after c takes d5, queen takes d5, all of a sudden queen f7 is in the air, and yeah, this is not that easy. What he was also thinking about, MVL, during the game was queen h2, but here actually white is winning with a very nice idea here, knight f6, I cannot take because of queen f7, followed by checkmate. And after king h6, there's knight g8 check, king h7, knight f7 check, king h8, all forced. And now simply rook g6, putting the rook here where it cannot be captured. And after something like rook h7, still knight f6 is the idea. And if black takes the queen, then rook g8 is quite a nice checkmate here. Instead of all of this, bishop e6 is the way to win. If now knight takes e7, bishop takes b3, and if white takes here, just rook h2, and these pawns are just way too fast. So white should instead try knight f6 with check, bishop takes f6, queen takes e6, and this was all part of Maxime's calculation. But after king h6, knight e4, king h6, queen e6 check, king h5, queen takes e4. He was not entirely sure about this position, but it turns out that black simply can go queen f7, and then bishop h4 will come, and the pawn on f2 will sooner or later fall, and black will win the game. So quite a lucky escape for Firouzja, if you can call it like this, when MVL here just repeated moves, and therefore Firouzja got away with the draw and was still at +1 in the tournament after this game. In round 4, Alireza faced the World Championship challenger Gukesh from India, and again, this was quite a lucky escape, if you can call it like that. Here Firouzja had the black pieces, and white has 3 pawns for the exchange, and also this pawn on h6 is very powerful, only 2 steps away from queening. So white is winning here, but here Gukesh stepped into the wrong direction by taking on a6, when after rook takes f4, Firouzja managed to have enough counterplay with the rooks. The pawn on f3 is now also hanging, and managed to save a draw later on in the game. Instead of rook takes a6, Gukesh should have brought the king around. Now after king e3, now rook takes a6 is a threat when the pawn on f4 is guarded. And after rook e1 check, king f2, rook h1 now to bring the king over to g3, and now h7 is also a threat sooner or later if the rook moves again. And after rook g1 check, now king h4 is important. There is no checkmate here along the h file with rook h5, and now h7 is actually a threat. For example, if he goes rook g2 is waiting, now h7, and if he takes the bishop, then white gets a queen. And if he gives check here, after king g4, the rook on f5 is also attacked. So after rook takes h7, king takes f5, here white would have a winning endgame. So to bring the king around, this would have been the way to go. And in this position, black is actually in zugzwang here. He cannot move his pieces. If he moves back the king, then the pawn on a6 is dropping with the check. So this would have been the way to go for Gukesh. Obviously not easy to see for white, all of this, to bring the king around. But yeah, instead, rook takes a6 happened in the game, and Firouzja managed to save another draw. In round 5, Alireza played against Giri, and after a very successful opening, Firouzja got a great advantage. Giri defended relentlessly, and here now we reached the highlight of the game, where Anish could have defended the game here if he would have been a bit more careful, but understandably he was under a lot of pressure during the whole game. Here he blundered by playing king g6. The defense was also not easy at all to see. He should have instead taken on a3, and only after rook f7 to play king g6 when the rook and the knight is attacked. So white cannot take here because the knight is on on f5. And if the rook steps back now, black has enough counterplay in time with bishop d2, and after these exchanges, the pawn on c4 is also weak. Pawn on f2 can be targeted by knight e4 and rook f2 and rook a2. So this would have held a draw, still with caution for black. Instead, Anish played king g6, and here what he missed was that after knight e7 check, king f6, knight takes e6, now the bishop is attacked, and also as happened in the game, after bishop d2, white has this brilliant idea with rook takes f7 check, which happened in the game, with the point that after king takes f7, knight takes e5 check, now white wins back the rook and is up 3 whole pawns, so this is a very easy conversion. In the game, something similar happened. After rook takes f7 check, king e6, rook e7, and after king d6, now rook d7. Brilliant move, and if black takes the knight here, then rook takes d3, simply picks up the exchange, and what happened in the game, king takes d7, knight e5, and now Firouzja managed to convert this very easily, being up 3 pawns. So that was a crucial game for the tournament standings as well, and definitely a deserved win for Firouzja since he put up so much pressure during the whole game and then found this very nice idea with knight e7, knight c6, and rook takes f7. After a very solid draw in round 6 against Wesley So, Firouzja then played against Liren in round 7 of the Sinquefield Cup, and this was a very typical line in the Italian where white put his bishop on g5 early on, pinning the knight, and then later on the bishop went back via h4 to g3. And there's a lot of pressure now in the center, and here also being pretty low on time already, Ding stepped into the wrong direction by playing e takes d4, giving up the center to white, and then Firouzja won very easily here. After d5, what happened in the game? He simply took on g6, took on a5, and now everything is collapsing. The bishop on a7 is hanging, and also the pawn on d5 fell, and being up 2 pawns, Firouzja managed to convert this very easily. The position is already pretty tough for black here after some inaccuracies before, but he should have just, obviously easy to say for us, but he should have just moved his rook, for example, or playing some waiting game, for example, moving the king first, or closing the position on the king side, and then moving the king out of this diagonal would have made the most sense in my opinion. But still, white has the central advantage and is slightly better, but it would have been a better way than what happened in the game, with e takes d4 simply giving up the center. And yeah, also what I forgot to mention, now after c takes d4, the pawn on a5 is always a target, and actually it's already basically impossible to defend the pawn on a5. And therefore, Firouzja managed to win another very crucial point for the tournament standings. After a solid draw in round 8 against Jan Nepomniachtchi, Firouzja faced Praggnanandhaa in round 9 of the tournament, and here it was already clear to him that a draw would suffice for winning the tournament, so having the white pieces is obviously an advantage in that scenario, and Firouzja tried to play very solid in this game, just not taking too many risks. And I just want to briefly mention the key events of that game here in this French McCutcheon variation after bishop g5, bishop d4, the so-called McCutcheon. e5 is the main line when there's a lot of complicated variations ahead, but instead, I think very wisely, Firouzja chose to take on d5. After e takes d5, the symmetrical position would be very safe for white to play. So Praggnanandhaa played queen takes d5, which is also the best move in the position, and now simply knight f3, knight e4, bishop d2, and a lot of pieces already exchanged. And Firouzja did not have any problems here to secure the draw and the tournament victory. a4, a5, a very typical idea to get rid of this a pawn, and many pieces exchanged here, exchanged the queens, and here we reached a level endgame, and later on the game was declared a draw, which then, Firouzja won the tournament after this game. So I think a very deserved tournament victory overall. He was lucky in 2 games, but luck is made. It doesn't come from nothing. So overall, a very deserved victory. And what I also can say from the interviews which I watched, which helped Firouzja, was that there was no distraction for him. In the other events which he played in the USA, in the St. Louis Chess Club, there was often the pressure for the candidates race, for example, when he had to maintain a certain elo and not lose too many rating points, because then he would lose the spot for the candidates. Also, there was a certain incident with Hans Niemann in the previous one of the previous events which Firouzja played. So there were a few distractions, and this time there was none of that. So that certainly helped him to perform as he did. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this kind of mini series on the Sinquefield Cup. I think there were many interesting moments from the event. And thank you for watching. You can check out my socials. They're in my description: felixbauberger.com, my website, Instagram, and so on. Until then, thank you for watching, and see you next time.